My former rock star student, Brian Cole, we're going to do some live Facebook streaming, which scares the crap out of me, but that's what's happening. So I just wanted to start by saying that SAL, the Section for the Advancement of Women, has been my professional home in APA since I was a student. I'm incredibly, incredibly humbled to have won this award and to be in the company of amazing women like Bianca Bernstein, Julie Ansis, Libby Nutt-William, Tanya Israel, and so many other amazing women who have won this award before me. I'm so incredibly grateful as I look around this room and see so many people that I love who surprised me today, people who I admire, people I respect, people who have shaped me personally and professionally. So thank you so much for being here. I'd like to dedicate my talk today to Shane, Allie, and Parrish Lopez. It is ironic to have won the Woman of the Year award in 2015, a year that was one of my most difficult. Yet having won this award gives me an incredible opportunity today to talk about whatever I want. So I'm not going to talk about my research, nor my career, nor my mentoring, or anything else like that. As was in my intro, I do IPV work and sexual assault work, and all of you know how to use PsycInfo, so I'm not going to talk about that today. So I'm going to talk about something very close to my heart, and that's the Love Campaign. And that might make no sense to you, but we'll get into that in just a moment. So this talk is about me, but is also decidedly not about me. I wanted to use my story and the past year and a half to illustrate some things that I've learned over the past year or so and share that with you today. I want this talk to show how much good can come from so much pain. I want to talk to encourage all of you to not harden your heart. I want this talk to help you pull your own tribe closer together. And I want this talk to be about you, about us, and about how we hold each other up. So those are my intentions. We'll see how we do. So January 2015, the beginning of the end, or otherwise known as the beginning of the beginning. So just a little backstory. I was married for 16 and a half years and with my partner for 19 years. And as 2015 dawned, very out of the blue, he said he was unhappy and wanted to go. And within a week or so, he was staying at a hotel. Within 3 weeks, he had got his own apartment and had led me to believe for quite some time that he was still deciding, that he wasn't quite sure, but he had decided. I'm a psychologist. I think I know something about people and can read people, and yet this really hit me hard and really came out of the blue. And a little backstory, abandonment has been a through line in a narrative of my whole life. So when I was a kid, my mom left when I was very, very young. And even before she left, she was never my primary caregiver. My father was always my primary caregiver. So she left when I was young. She lived about 5 miles away, and I wouldn't see her for months at a time. She was a chronic canceller. So abandonment has been something I've spent a lot of time in therapy on the client side of the chair. So with my ex-partner leaving, I was very, very concerned that this was just going to bring up my old narrative, that it was going to reinforce all the stuff that I had worked on for so long to overcome. And I had this very, very strong fear of that I was going to go dark, that the work I had done in therapy over the years was going to be for naught, that it was just going to reinforce this belief of everyone leaves sooner or later, that you can't really trust people, that you just need to take care of yourself, focus on you, and you're good. So that was my fear as January started and he left. And I'm not going to spend this talk talking about him. This story is not about him. He's just the impetus for mine. So that was sort of how January 2015 started. And so yeah, I'll start there. So January into April, I am someone who has been prone to anxiety. I run type A, shocking for many people who have a PhD in the room, I'm sure. So anxiety has been a very familiar thing in my life, but this was a whole different breed, completely different. I'm usually an emotional eater. I really like Ben & Jerry's, and that's not what was happening. I couldn't eat. Even if I could try to get something in me, I couldn't keep it in me. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't read. I couldn't concentrate. I would read things. I joked to my book club in February, I think, that I'd read the book 4 times because I'd read a few pages and then I have no idea what I'm reading, so I'd have to go back and read them again. I had a lot of physical symptoms. I literally bled for like 2 weeks, and sort of the metaphor for that is like I felt like my broken heart was literally bleeding through my body. TMI, but we're here at Saul, so that's how that goes. So this was a whole different beast of anxiety. And I think that looking back that I was in a state of fight or flight for probably a few months, and was experiencing a trauma. And so I wanted to put that up. And so one of the things I started to do was I would walk. So I live in Nebraska. It's really cold in the winter. And I was in shock, and I have an adorable 94-pound Labrador Retriever, which many of you have met, Parker. And so I would come home and not know what to do with myself, and so I would just go take a walk. And being outside, moving, breathing helped. Taking care of my dog helped. Even feeling cold, something other than the pit in my stomach and the racing heart and the unable to sleep or eat or breathe, felt good. I also... I've been a sporadic yoga practitioner since grad school. And by sporadic, I mean like, a class in April, and then class like in December. So a very non-regular practitioner. But the other thing that I started to do was get on the mat. And so it gave me someplace to go. It gave me something to do. And it helped me have a place to start building some strength, even if that was from the kind of outside in, even though inside I felt a mess. I felt like, well, if I was doing something physical for my body, that maybe would help me and would come inside. The other thing that started, and this was on a previous slide, which I didn't say, was that I started to say yes. And that's a big thing I want to share with you today. So back in January, when I started to finally tell people, your friends start to offer help, right? All of us have been through things that are difficult and things of loss and trauma, and people want to help, right? Your tribe comes and says, can I bring you dinner? Can I do this? And what do we tend to say? No, I'm good, right? I'm good. And so one of my very good friends, Melissa, she was living in Boston at the time. In Boston 2015, for anybody who was in the Northeast, it snowed like every 5 minutes. And she has a very busy production company, and I remember talking to her like the first week and a half in, and she said, do you want me to come? And I paused, and I was thinking, she's so busy, and it's so snowy, and it's expensive to buy a flight last minute, and she shouldn't come. And I was like, yeah. And she came, and I don't even know what we did. I just know, like, I have a guest room, and I made the guest room up, and we put her stuff in there, and the first night we were going up to sleep, and I'm asking her, does she have everything? And she's like, I'm just going to sleep in here with you. And I was like, okay, thanks. Like to have someone sleep in the bed with me, and that mattered. I had another very good friend of mine who's not here. She's also my partner in crime, in psychology, Sarah Gervais. Many of you know her. And she had a 6-month-old at the time. While this was all happening, she lives in Lincoln, and she saw me every single day for 18 days. So she's in the middle of sleep training, she's in the middle of caring for this 6-month-old, and she made time for me, and I let her. I said yes to that. I needed her. I could not do this by myself. The other thing that started to do was I started sending a lot of cards to other people. Some of you in the room, I think, have had some of those, right? And so as much as I felt lost and heartbroken and sad and sick, I had to remind myself every day, like, this is not unprecedented, right? Like, people get divorced every day, right? Like, what I'm experiencing is not unusual. Like, many people, unfortunately, have done this. My dad's done it, twice. And so, I would just remind myself, like, I'm not alone in this. Like, this loss that I'm feeling, this heartbreak is not something new. And I also knew that so many of the people in my life and people who I don't know are also struggling with, like, much bigger things, right? Like, if I sat and thought about it, it's like, people have harder losses, or people are also dealing with their own struggles. And so, like, I can wallow and just think about poor me, but, like, I have a whole group of people who I know and who I don't know who are also struggling, right? So I had to remind myself and chose to remind myself that every person who we meet, every person we come across is holding something difficult and is also struggling. So when I would feel really shitty, and I'm going to cuss in this talk, if you know me at all, that's not unusual, I would just get out cards and send people cards and say, I love you, and I'm thinking about you, and I know you're having a hard time, and if I can do anything, let me know. And somehow that helped me feel better. That helped me feel less alone in the crisis that I was having, that I was not the only person of 7 billion people on the planet that was having a hard time. I continued to say yes. So people started to offer to come visit. People started to offer, could I come visit them? I went and stayed at my lovely friend Karina's house, and she had to work, but I would just read on the couch, or I watched all of House of Cards, but it was better than being home by myself. I tried to reach out when I could, so I think I called Karina, who's here most every day. I don't know that I even talked many times. I would just cry. And I remember one particular night, I couldn't stop crying. And I was just on the phone with her, crying and crying. It was in like one of the darkest kind of places, and I couldn't stop. And I remember telling her, and Karina lived in Denver at the time, and I said, I got to go because I need to find somebody local. And I wasn't necessarily having active thoughts, but I felt like this could get bad quick if I keep staying in this place and I need to be with someone. So I called my friend Sarah, and she didn't answer. She has the 6-month-old. I called my friend Lauren, and she's like, I just walked in the door from work. You know, what's going on? I'm like, I need you. And she's like, I'll be there. And she was at my house in 10 minutes, and she stayed with me, and it took probably an hour for me to stop crying. And then she reminded me, like, has Parker, my dog, has he eaten? Has he had his walk? When's the last time you ate? You know, and she stayed with me for like 5 hours. And I tell you that to say a lot of stuff I'm going to share with you is like, I feel great right now, right? I'm good. But that it was really hard, and not to shy away from or pretend that it wasn't really hard. But to try and encourage, like, what can we do when it's really hard and it's really dark? So I started having scandal nights. My friend Lauren, and she invited me over to watch a movie one night. I'm like, I don't think there's a safe movie. I think every movie is going to have some triggering something in it. So we started watching Scandal, and that was really fun. I had lots of phone calls, lots of texts. A friend of mine who lives in California, she was going to come visit me, and she's like, wait, isn't it better for you to go somewhere? I'm like, it's always better for me to go somewhere. And so she was like, well, for me to buy a ticket to come to you costs the same as me buying the ticket for you to come to me. And so that's another time where it's like, oh, that feels like too much. You know, we want to say no. And I was like, okay. So I said yes. So I went and I did that and kept saying yes. I also have amazing students, many of them who are here in the room. So I was somehow going to work. I'm not going to say that I was working during that semester, but I was going to work. And I was doing the best I could, but what I'm super grateful for is that I have the most amazing job, and I have students who have allowed me to create real relationships with them. And so I never felt like, first of all, you couldn't look at me and not know like something was wrong, but also that I could just tell them what was happening, and I didn't have to put on some game face of pretending like, I'm good, I got this all together. Because they didn't, and I could fall apart with them, and hopefully I could show them, like, it's okay to be human, and it's okay to be real, and your generosity, for those of you who are in the room, I can't tell you how thankful and appreciative I am, and the space you gave me, and the room you gave me, and the allowances you gave me to not be on top of my game, was invaluable to me. And I am really grateful that I had to go to work, because had I not, I think I just would have laid in bed. So having to go somewhere and like be somewhat responsible and see people and all of that was really, really helpful. So I wanted to say thanks for my students and for allowing me to have a real relationship with each of you. So then I started to buy shirts. So this is an example of one of them. I started to buy shirts that said love on them. And I sort of was consciously, not consciously, but I just kept, buying like a shirt like this, and then a shirt like this. So that was kind of happening. So if you can kind of keep that in your, the back of your mind. So then we kind of move a little further in the year to April to July. And what I was doing then was really practicing yoga every day. So the yoga became this super big practice, and I felt like, as many of you might know about meditation and yoga and breathing, that all of that research has substantiated, like how much it helps deal with anxiety and stress and helping to calm down. And I'd known that research, but I felt like I was actually living that every day, and that days that I didn't go to yoga, I felt worse. I felt the anxiety was just mounting and mounting. I didn't have the headspace. And so I started to go to yoga pretty much every day. It gave me, like I said, somewhere to go, somewhere to be. It also helped me develop a new community. So I know many folks as psychologists are wired very introvertedly. I am not. I am as extroverted as possible. And so that helped with the loneliness factor. I was going to say something else about yoga. I lost it. It'll come back. The other thing was that I cried constantly on the mat. So it was a pretty safe space. I mean, I was crying constantly on the phone to Karina. I was crying constantly with my therapist. I'm not a crier. Like, usually I'm like, I got this, and had done a lot of work over time to compartmentalize. And so this was sort of waterworks central. And I got to tell you that the safest other place that's not your therapist's office or your best friend on the phone is on the mat, because people on the mat, that's why they're there too. And so I just would silently cry. And it's not even like I knew it would happen. It would be like I'd be in down dog, or we'd take a breath, or, the yoga teacher would say something, when you exhale, let go of everything that doesn't serve you. Breathe in what you need. And that helped a lot. And so I would just exhale all these, negative thoughts and sadness and despair, and my mantra every day on the mat was love. I would just try to breathe in love, and so just kept thinking about love and trying to send that out. Some of you might know that travel is my happy place. Like, if I could do anything in the world, I would travel all the time, and so I really, really love to travel. So I traveled a ton. So I went to Boulder to see friends. I stayed with Karina for a while. I went to Missouri for a beautiful retirement reception for Mary Hepner, my advisor. Stayed with friends at that. That was great. I went to California. I visited friends in Des Moines. I went to Austin and visited a best friend from college. I went to Vancouver. And all of my friends were splitting trips and all that kind of stuff to help support me in that. And so traveling helped, and I could see my friends. People came to see me. People don't come to Lincoln, Nebraska very often. So people came to see me. They wanted to be there. They wanted to show up, and I kept saying yes. And I let them. So my friend Melissa comes in January when it's constantly snowing in Boulder. My best friend Andy from internship comes from Atlanta. One of my best friends from college came from Texas. So people came to visit me, and I visited them. And that was really, really amazing. So I'm going to keep reminding you about this saying yes thing. So I kept saying yes, which I've said. I also chose to take the high road a lot. And I say that because I am not the most beneficent person. I had, as time unfolded and more truth kind of came out about what was happening with my ex-partner, was realizing that things were not what they seemed. And he handled things in a way, from my perspective, again, this is my story, not his, were very, very hurtful. And so I just want to own that I had a million vengeful thoughts, really good stuff, that I wanted to say, that I wanted to do. Some of my students know those, some little, ooh, you know what I thought of last night? But I didn't. It was fun to think about those, or things I wanted to vague booking. People know what vague booking is, right? So I wanted to say things on Facebook and different stuff, and I just couldn't. I just couldn't, because integrity, I think, is one of my very core values. And I wanted to always feel like I could look anybody in the eye and feel like I handled this well. And so I took the high road whenever I could, and I would hear things, and I would want to lash out, or I would want to send a nasty text, or I'd want to put something on Facebook, and I just didn't. And so that was really important to me. The other thing was my former family, his family, never reached out to me during this whole time. So this is someone, again, I was married for 16 and a half years. We were together for 19. We dated 3 different times in our life. His parents is the only phone number that I know by heart today, because I called it since I was 17. And no one in his family ever reached out to me, and that felt not good. But I had gone home. I'm from Baltimore. I had gone home in May, and it felt wrong to me to not say goodbye to these people that I called mom and dad for 16 years, that I was part of their life for half my life. And so I contacted them, and I went to say goodbye to them. And that was brutal and awful. And they live up the hill from a 7-Eleven, and when I left, I just pulled into the parking lot and cried for about a half an hour. But that felt right to me. That felt like honoring the relationships I had with them, and knowing I wouldn't be a part of their life. We don't, my partner and I didn't have children, so it's not like we're going to stay in each other's extended family's lives. Like, this is it. And even though they didn't reach out to me, I reached out to them because that felt like honoring my truth and honoring that these people were important to me. And they didn't say a whole lot. I mean, they were happy to see me. They said that they didn't have to say goodbye, that they were always here for me. But I know that that chapter and my time with them was over, but that felt right. And again, that was just an example of taking the high road and trying to really hold on to what is important to me and who do I want to be through this process. The other thing is I was really honest on Facebook. And so many people in the room are my Facebook friends and can attest to some of that. And so not in the vengeful fantasy way that I wanted to, and we can talk some more about those if you want to hear, but just that I didn't pretend that I was fine. I don't think I wallowed. You can let me know. I don't think I was like, you know how you see some Facebook posts that really feel like they're kind of calling out to like in this sort of self-pity way. I don't think it was that. It just was more like, I'm struggling. And I think some of you are struggling too. And like, we got this. And trying to just not shy away from what was true of my experience. And you know, I think a lot of us have seen different posts or have felt like that kind of weird Facebook envy thing, right? Like everyone's having these beautiful lives and these beautiful experiences, and they're laying on the beach and no one has sand on them. How's that possible? Right? And it's just like, who can connect with that, right? Like it just isn't true. And I'm a big Brene Brown fan, have used a lot of her work. People in the room, I think, are familiar with her. Personally and professionally, and you know, talking about vulnerability and talking about being real and congruent. And congruency is a big, big value of mine. I think my students know that, my friends know that. Like, I'm this person all the time. Like, I don't get into teaching mode or therapy mode or whatever. And so I just wanted to be honest on Facebook and say I was struggling, and not in a way of like, oh, give me attention, but like, I'm struggling too, and it's okay, and I bet you're struggling, and like, can we all sort of be in this together? And trying to post things that were kind of inspirational of like, whew, thank God for that hour on the mat, I'm feeling so much better. How about you? Like, I'm breathing. And so trying to do that in a way, not just to talk about myself, kind of like this talk is about me and not about me, but how can I be real and also invite you to be real? And in that way, even in the weird social media thing, like, aren't we more connected that way? And aren't we more honest and true, and I'm here and you're here, and we're all trying to get through this thing day by day. And it was amazing to me about how many people reached out to me in return. So there was this period of time, like almost every single day, I would get a text, a Facebook message from many of you in the room actually, where someone would see a heart and would text it to me and be like, I saw this and I thought about you today. Or I saw like love spray painted on something, and they would take a picture and post it to their wall and tag me. And I was hashtagging, you know, they would tag me in that and thought of you. And so, how awesome to be associated with love, that like when someone sees something about love or a heart that they think of you, like that's awesome. That's not always been the case with me, I don't think. But also that like, what was amazing was that like people had love and connection in their consciousness every day. And that was like the whole point, right? So that like, as we walk around in this really troubled, difficult world, that people would see these messages that gave them, at least for a moment in that day, like a little spark of something that felt good. And then they reached out and shared it with me. And then I often would be like, I got this today from somebody in Vancouver, or I got this today from, I think you sent, where were you? Someplace crazy. Yeah, Iraq, right? So, and like reposting that. And that was, it became like this reverberating kind of thing. And so that was really, really amazing. So then I started to buy more shirts that said love, like this one, and this one, and this one, and that one, and then maybe a hat, and a different tank top. So that was kind of interesting. So in July, I went down to Texas to meet up with my two best friends from internship. So Andy Smith, who is at Georgia State's Counseling Center now, and Josh Bias, who is in Texas and works for a small university down there. And so we went down to Texas to visit with them, and I just love the two of them. They're like my best buds from internship and just amazing. And Andy says to me, he's like, I love this whole love campaign thing you got going on. I'm like, love campaign? He's like, yeah. He's like, you're sending out all these messages about love and, you know, like all your love shirts and whatever. And I was like, huh. Like, I had not thought about that. I'm like, yeah, I got me a love campaign going on. So then that started, I started then hashtagging that with like all my pictures on Instagram or things I would post on Facebook. There's some other racy pictures in the Instagram love campaign feeds if you want to look at those, but there are also lots of my posts in there as well. But Andy really kind of coined that phrase, and I really sort of loved it because it was like helping me actively focus on love to not go dark, to actively look at how much love I have in my life and how much love I can give, and not wallow in this thing that I had lost. And also to remind other people, like, everyone in this room, you are so loved. Whether I don't know if you know it or you feel it or you say yes to it or you allow it in, but there are people who love you. I'm one of them. I'm a big fan of so many of you in this room. It's incredible. So that's how the love campaign came to be, or the name of it. And then I started sending out love bombs. So I would just like be sitting somewhere and I'd be like, just send like a slew of texts to people. Just being like, thinking of you, I love you, or just like a bunch of emojis. I love emojis, sorry. Or I would send texts, or I would just go to people's Facebook walls and just put a little heart on there. And like, it just makes people feel good. It made me feel good. So that was awesome. I started doing, again, more yoga. And I'm not saying you all have to do yoga. That just happened to be my thing. And I don't know how many people have practiced yoga or know a lot, but many times when the class is over and we're having sort of a moment of gratitude to our teachers and things like that, we often give our practice away, right? That the hour or whatever that we spent on the mat, that we give that and we dedicate that to someone else. And so those dedications started to get really important to me. So I started putting that on Facebook too, like, who needs some extra juju? Who needs some love? Like, and I'm like, let me know if you want me to dedicate a practice to you. And lots of people would publicly say, like, me. Some of you were in the room. And then some people wouldn't want to say it privately, but they would send me a text or ask me in Messenger. And it felt so lovely to kind of give that back and to hold people while I was on the mat and remember, like, I'm not in this alone and they're not in this alone. And so that became a really important practice to me, too, of feeling like I could give that away. And whatever you believe about that, spiritually or how we're all connected, it mattered to me, and I think it mattered to the people that asked. And so I gave that away, and that felt really good. And lo and behold, I found like happiness still exists in the world. And I started to just see, like, I have so much love in my life. And, like, even though I don't have a partner and he left and his whole thing, but I don't lack for love. And the people who are here today, the people who maybe are watching this live streaming on Facebook, which is blowing me away, like, I have a lot of love in my life, and that's important. And that, like, maybe I'll have the love again of a partner, or maybe I won't, but that I have so much love, and my life is so good. And so that was really important, in that I was happy, and that I felt good seeing my friends, and I felt stronger in my body, and I felt stronger in my spirit. And the more I sent out love, the more I was getting it. And just became this total love is my superpower kind of thing. So that's July to December. In December, that started to happen. So dating, and I'm not going to share a lot of gory details here. And again, if you want some, I can share. But dating is totally awesome in its own brand of hell. Like, it is just, Marilee, right? I know that. So something I just never expected to be doing in my 40s, and some of it is so cool, like, to, like, know myself. I certainly am a very different person and have much more self-awareness than the person I was in my 20s who was dating. And also, it's so hard, right? Like, it's so hard to, like, meet people. And I live in a really married, locked down town, like, everyone is married. And it was really horrible. But my students who are awesome, one of them recommended, is anyone familiar with Aziz Ansari, the comedian? He was on Parks and Rec, and he has, what's his new show? Master of None. And so he wrote this awesome book called Modern Romance. So if you're single, I recommend it. If you're a clinician who works with folks who are dating, it's awesome. So one of my students, Lindsay, who's not here, hi Lindsay, she was like, you've got to read Modern Romance, it's so good. And so I read that and I felt a lot better. And I was like, okay, all right. So I've been dipping my toe in the dating pool, and that's been really scary and hard and weird. But I do believe in love, and I'm not someone who's wired to live a life by myself, and so started to kind of do that and trying to rediscover. I felt like I became very acquainted with like what is love, and now I have all these new questions about what is intimate love and romantic love and partner love, and is that different, and how do you know, and all these. But I've had all these amazing conversations with girlfriends who are partnered, who are not, with people I'm dating, and so it's just been really, really interesting. So that started, and then 2 days after Christmas, my mom died. So you can see why it's ironic to win the Woman of the Year award in 2015, because it started as a shit show and ended as a shit show. I already told you that I had a very tumultuous relationship with my mom, and she had left, and I fought for a long time to have a relationship with her. And I had somewhat of a relationship with her, but I've also spent more money in therapy on her than anybody else. And so when she died, it was sort of just a shift had happened. I lost my mom a long, long time ago. But it was just this interesting bookend of this year that could have reinforced my whole narrative and story about being the abandoned daughter and then the abandoned partner. And trying to kind of see there's some truth to that. Like, I've had people walk out. We've all had people who've walked out in one way or another. But she was already gone. And to really see, I think when December came, that my life is not an abandonment story. And I will not let it be an abandonment story. And that his choice, her choice to leave says far more about them than it will ever say about me. So 2016 came, and then, did someone say sabbatical? So as some of you know, I've been on sabbatical in the spring, and I have to say, like, it was perfectly timed. I was so, so grateful that I didn't take it the previous spring, because I think I would have taken that opportunity to just lay in bed. I traveled a ton. I've been so far, if we count this APA trip, and I'm going to stay a few days to see my friends, this is trip number 12 of the year. So it's been awesome. I spent 3 weeks in Bali. I did a week-long yoga festival, which was amazing and transformative. And if you've never been to Bali, I highly encourage it, even if you're not a yogi. It's just this place that reverberates like love and joy and peace and connection, and it's just awesome. And everywhere you go and have something to eat, people chat with you and talk, and it's just this beautiful, vibing, awesome place. I met great people. I traveled by myself. It started with a friend had talked to me about going, and then she didn't go. And I went, and it was amazing. And I met so many people and had such an amazing experience, and it was such a gift. I've seen lots of friends. I've been to Portland. I've been to Boulder many times. Where else have I gone? I'm finally going home. I went to Alaska. A friend of ours lives in Alaska. My brother texted me while I was there and said, are you going to come home and see Dad at any point during the sabbatical? So yes, Dad, I'm coming Labor Day weekend. I have 6 more trips planned for the year, and so I have lived up the sabbatical and loved it up and been loved in return. So I've seen so many friends and connected with a lot of people, and it's been amazing. I continue to do this dating thing and trying to kind of let myself have fun and to explore and to kind of enter into this new opportunity that I didn't think I'd have. The other thing is, I will say this about the dating thing. I remember when I was still partnered and would lament about, oh gosh, man, that first kiss, like to never have a first kiss with somebody again, and that whole like exciting thing. So that's a huge plus if you like lose your partner, like you have some first kisses again, and that's kind of awesome. And then, let's see, then this happened. So I have a little baby, tiny tattoo from college on my ankle that I forget that I have. And I had been really thinking about love and thinking about the whole love campaign thing and kind of wanted to memorialize that in some way. And thought, I think I'm going to get some ink. So I originally thought I would just get like where it says love, kind of tiny, like right here, small on my wrist. And then I was like, well, maybe I'll get it kind of big. And then as I went and talked to this great tattoo artist in town, Russ Oberg, Russ, shout out to you. He's just a beautiful artist, and I had fallen in love with this kind of watercolor tattoo style. And as we were talking about, like, what else could we do, I started talking to him about lotus flowers. Do people know anything about lotus flowers, right? Thich Nhat Hanh. So lotuses grow from mud. And so Thich Nhat Hanh has a book called No Mud, No Lotus. And the whole idea is that the beauty only comes from darkness. Beauty only comes from the ick and the muck and the crap, right? And so that if we don't have those parts, if we don't have the difficulties and the ickiness, the murkiness, then we don't have the beauty, right? Brene Brown talks about that too, right? About not selectively numbing. We can numb all those negative emotions. We can numb grief and loss and fear and pain and hurt. But if we numb all those, we numb joy and happiness and, all the beautiful things too. And so Lotus is also the name of my studio where I practice yoga, and so that was really meaningful to me too, because I feel like yoga really saved my life, having somewhere to go. And so that's what I decided to do with the lotus flower and love, and I chose to get it on my arm so that I could see it all the time and have a reminder. And so when I feel like I'm going dark or things feel bad or the world seems really scary, to just have this real physical reminder of what it's really about and why we're here. So that I'm not encouraging you all to get a tattoo, but if you want one. So what's the point? Why am I talking to you about all this today? So some things I hope you take from my talk today is to be honest and to let people know when you're suffering. And I am including letting yourself know in that part, right? To like slow down enough to know, check in with yourself, like, how am I actually doing today? And many of us are very private and need time, and I respect that, and not everybody would be as vocal or as open, and that, I'm not telling you that there's one way, but if you can be open to at least your tribe, to at least who your inner circle is, and to let people know when you're struggling, I really want to encourage you to say yes. That by saying yes and letting people help you, that does so much, and that reverberates. So I grew up Irish Catholic. I have the Irish thing still, not the Catholic thing so much. And, so I get being stoic, and I get like the being strong kind of thing. But I don't think we do any favors to ourselves or the people who we are in connection with when we do that, because I don't think we can do this alone, right? Like, we are built for connection. We are built and wired to be in community with one another, and we need help. And also, the people who love you are desperate to do something, right? They really want to do something. When people are offering, like, what can I do? Can I bring some food? Can I help take Joey to soccer or whatever? And we say no, that cuts them off from doing something. And if we say yes to them, they feel so much better, right? Because they really want to do something. They can feel like, right, there's nothing to say. There's nothing to say about the loss of a loved one, whether that's through divorce or death. There is nothing to say about a catastrophic illness. There are no right words, right? But that people want to do something. So when you say yes, that lets them do something and feel good, and that also lets you get support, and that just keeps building on itself. With that, I will say, to encourage you to reach out. There's so many times where we feel like, oh, I don't know what to say. This awful thing happened, or maybe I'm not close enough, and they're just trying to do inner circle. And there's no harm in reaching out. And to remind yourself, like I just said, there isn't anything to say. And all you have to say is, I don't know what to say, but I love you and I'm here. And that's all you have to say. That's all you have to do. So let's reach out and be there for each other when we can. The other thing is, when we're struggling, and even when we're not, to do what you love. Like for me, it was travel and yoga and other things, and those are my passions, and that's what I love. But that's what buoyed me in this year and a half and got me through, and talking with my friends. So whatever that thing is that lights you up in your darkest times, do that for even 2 minutes. Like, take a walk, pet your dog, call somebody, cook something you can muster, just eat if you can. But to find what you love to do and do that thing when you're struggling and having the hardest time, and that can really buoy you. And to remember that this is your story, and that no one else is writing it, and it doesn't matter what other people have chosen to do or to not do in your life. That don't let them write what your story is going to be, how the ending is going to be, that we can have some control and we can make choices. You can choose to not go dark. You can choose to reach out. You can choose to show up. You can choose to open your heart even though it hurts like hell. But just remember, this is your story and that you are writing it and that you still have every chapter ahead of you. And to do that. So I love you. Thank you so much for being here. And I want to end on this quote that I keep coming back to, and that I had an artist friend script for me that's huge in my house. And that is, be soft. Do not let the world make you hard. Do not let pain make you hate. Do not let bitterness steal your sweetness. Take pride that even though the rest of the world may disagree, you still believe it to be a beautiful place. Thank you so much. I don't know if anybody has any questions. I don't know what